Hi, this is Emily, and this is the M Dash. If this is your first time here, I am so grateful you found your way. And if you've been on this journey from me from the beginning, I'm so excited to be back. I just saw that my last recording was on June 2nd. And that's wild to think that I took that much of a break. But I couldn't wait to record. I woke up today excited to record. And what I love about today is I woke up to a text today, not literally woke up to it, but my dad's text this morning. We text each other every morning. And his text literally said to me, "Remember what you said on your podcast on May 5th. And I thought, there is no way I remember what I said. I remember exactly where I was and where I recorded, but I couldn't remember what it was about. And I love that it made me go back and reflect and listen. I paused because I literally, that was my message. My last recording was asking my listeners to listen to previous podcasts, tell me what resonated, tell me what maybe they wanted to hear about. And the reason why he said it, and I'm actually not sure totally because I haven't got to the bottom of that, but it was a good reflection to me because what I thought it was is where I've come in a month's time. That message was about carrying on and weathering the storm and knowing that I was in the middle of it and knowing I was almost to the other side. And even hearing the tears I cried and hearing the emotion I had, it brought emotion back. And I always listen to my recordings right after I record them, but it's different when you hear them later. It's different when you reflect back on your life a little later. And I realized today it's where I've come. There is a moment in life when you realize you spent years proving you can survive, that you can carry the weight, that you can solve the problem, that you can work harder, push longer, and hold more. And for a long time, those skills became a part of my identity. And then one day, life asked something completely different of you. And it asked something completely different of me. I resigned from a corporate job I've had for 10 years. And that wasn't the easiest decision to make. And I didn't have something I absolutely knew was going to work out. But I did it not on certainty. I did it on faith. I did it for myself. Because I knew that space no longer served me and my path in my journey. And I knew no matter what, I would figure it out. And I've talked about before on a podcast, loosening the grip and trusting. But there's also work that goes along with that. Just like when you plant a garden, right? You have to plant seeds in the garden for the things to bloom, for your vegetables to grow, for the flowers to grow. And it's not something that happens quickly or overnight, but it's something I learned and understanding who I was and what I was capable of. And then that episode, May 5th, what I reflected on, it's not so much weathering the storm. It's what I was carrying inside and just waiting to see the other side. But I also talked about how I always thought to get a reward, I had to endure something hard. And that I didn't really know that you were just able to be receptive to receive, not earn, not chase, not force. Receive. And that might sound crazy what I'm saying right now, because thinking, how could you leave something not having a safe landing? How could you do that? But I've done that in relationships. So for me to think I couldn't do that from a career sounds ludicrous to me. And maybe that's because it's the income, right? But there's always a way to earn. There is always a way to make it. And I knew in my mind, even if I had to go wait tables, I was going to do it. Whatever it took to make it, to survive, to provide for my daughter, I was willing to do it. And it took everything, but I wanted to do it from a place of peace. And I did. I wanted to do it where emotion wasn't tied to it, where I found myself space to do so, to receive. I literally spent my life believing that good things only came through struggle, and that receiving can feel terrifying. Because somewhere along the way, I realized that I learned that if things were easy, they might disappear. I always thought, okay, I had a really good day, so tomorrow might not be so good because today was so amazing. But I literally just had a beautiful last 2 days. And I'm not saying that that's not going to happen where you don't have a day. That's something's going to happen. And that when you open to receive, that things can't appear and that storms will never happen again for me. But I've learned how to deal with them. I've learned more about myself. I've learned that bravery and fear can coexist. And I literally said that May 5th, but it's one thing to share my thoughts and know that there's power behind what I'm saying, but it's also like giving advice, right? You're quick to give advice to someone, but not necessarily take your own advice. And it's like I did. It's like I actually did take my own advice. And that's why I found strength in sharing my podcast and strength in sharing my story and being personal, because everything I've shared on my podcast is something I have personally been dealing with. And I've never gotten to the nitty-gritty what it was. And I'm not saying that every podcast I shared had to do with my career. It had to do with what I was, I would say, battling. I don't know if that's the right word I want to use, but inside. But it was related to it. And it's not because I worked at a place that was no good. I bloomed, I growed. I am grateful for the person I've become in those 10 years. I truly have. I walked away with gratitude. It just wasn't the place for me to keep going and to keep growing. But when I learned to stop gripping so tightly to the outcome of what could go wrong instead of what could go right, I just actually found myself gripping my hand because I felt I was gripping. I was gripping to every outcome of every single thing. And I wasn't flowing. I wasn't flowing through moments. I wasn't flowing from day to day. And there should be structure. But in my mind, when I say flow, I think about when you go to a yoga class and you're moving through movements. And if you haven't gone to yoga, this might not make sense to you. But that's what comes to my mind is you're moving through the movements and you're really just supposed to be focusing on your breath, like meditation. And the whole idea of that to me is the flow, is giving your mind, your body a rest. And trusting that you are doing the right things and you're putting in the right work and that it can work out without you gripping to every outcome of it and taking risks and seeing where you land. And I got blessed in the door I shut to the door that opened. But what I realized is, what if my next season isn't asking me to work harder? What if it's just asking me to trust more? And that means trusting yourself and trusting what you're doing. And listening to my podcast today, I realized I'm standing on a shoreline. Behind me is a version of myself I deeply respect. I worked, I sacrificed, and I carried more than most people knew. And that, I think, is the emotion in episodes where I just let myself cry and I let myself be vulnerable. And I'm not regretful for what it took for me to get here. I am 1,000% grateful for the journey, and I truly believe I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. And people say that all the time, and you're like, okay, yeah, I am. But I truly, truly believe that right now. And while I thought I was grieving a job or a chapter ending, I think what I was really grieving was her. Me, a version of myself that I now see is on the other side. The woman that got me here. The woman who believed she had to hold everything together. The woman who thought survival was the same thing as living. And the strange thing about growth is sometimes healing doesn't look like becoming someone new. Sometimes healing looks like finally putting down what you no longer need to carry. Ironically, the episode my dad was talking about was called Carry On. What a mirror reflection. I've spent the last month learning something that sounds simple, but has been incredibly difficult. I am allowed to receive. I am allowed to receive support. I am allowed to receive opportunities. I'm allowed to receive rest. I am allowed to receive joy without earning any of it through exhaustion first. And the more I loosen my grip, the more life seems to meet me halfway. Not because I'm doing less, but because I'm finally allowing myself to believe that I deserve good things. Tonight I went to a sound bath. And that might sound, what is a sound bath? It's when different sounds, different frequencies are played. And you basically just rest. You close your eyes, you just breathe. A lot of people fall asleep. But it's sounds through healing. And it's okay if you don't believe in that stuff. I'm not here to convince you otherwise. I have just really been experiencing new things for myself. And that feels really good to say for myself. But today, during the sound bath, I noticed something unexpected. There were no battles happening in my mind. No criticism, No fear, no rehearsing worst case scenarios. Just loving thoughts, strong thoughts, gentle thoughts. And maybe that's the real sign of healing. Not that life becomes perfect, and not that I'm completely healed of everything ever. But I feel stronger. I feel love. And when I say love, I feel it for myself. It's almost like I could literally hug myself. But what I've understood is that my mind is becoming a safer place to live. So if you're standing on a shoreline too, between who you've been and who you've been becoming, I hope you know this. You don't have to force the next chapter. You don't have to know exactly where you're going. You don't have to grip so tightly. You can trust the tide. You can trust yourself. And maybe, just maybe, receiving can be gentle. Here's a blessing for the shoreline. May what is meant for you find you gently. May what is leaving do so with grace. May your heart stay open enough to receive all the good things that are already on its way. I spent years proving I could survive, and this season is teaching me how to receive. The shore is behind me, and I truly feel that the life I prayed for is in front of me. I hope that you learn to stop fighting the tide and learn to start trusting it. Thank you for being here today. It's so exciting to be back. And as I promised, I will be doing this in the flesh. So you will see my face very soon. I was just ready to record. And that just so happened to be now. And it's not that I want to say I was too lazy to do all the setup and do all the things, but it's a new practice for me. So I want to be patient with myself to do so. And I thank you for doing the same. So thank you for being here today. And I look forward to speaking with you again. This is Emily, and this is the M-. And you are always welcome here.